pressure on his opponent. And it will be up to Liem, who has to withstand the storm.
No increment, remember, in Armageddon. They have the time that they start out with, and Magnus will have 5 minutes, right?
Magnus will have 5, Liem will have 4. So we see the clock times above the players.
Yeah.
Those will be corrected in a moment. And it's just fast, it's just furious, it's all about the speed. And as we saw in that Duda versus Prague game, it's all about the mouth skills. And we'll see the moves come flying on the board. It's the Spanish opening, which we saw earlier today between these two. Magnus allows the open Spanish. If black captures in the center, he does. But Magnus chooses a different variation than the first rapid game of the day. And this is mainline theory. This is very well-known stuff. White's pawn stepping forward now. Will we see black capture in a moment on this square? This is, I think, called the Dilworth variation. It's very, very, very tactical stuff. Magnus has barely spent any time. Liem's barely spent any time. I've seen both players have this position in rapid games on the tour. Right now, there was a sacrifice there by black, but black has given up 2 pieces. In return, he got a rook and 2 pawns. So if we do a count, black is actually 1 point up, but white's minor pieces are phenomenal. White's minor pieces are very strong. And I remember a game Magnus beat Hans Niemann on the tour earlier this season with the white side of this opening.
Yep. I also remember that game. I also remember Liem also playing this with the black pieces against Jordan Van Forest. And the two are still playing into the main line. This has all been seen before. Knight goes to the edge of the board. And the main line is actually for the queen to move 1 square across the diagonal to threaten to pin the queen and rook.
Yeah, I'm really surprised by this decision by Magnus. He's played into an opening. He knows that Liem has studied in depth. Liem has played all of these moves almost instantly. And it's very theoretical. Black should be fine. Black's pawns in the middle of the board look great. Yeah, it's just so complicated, so hard to put a finger on in terms of what the plan should be. Often it's just move by move, and there it's just about pure speed. Maybe Magnus is playing on the clock. But yeah, I think objectively, maybe it would have been a safer decision to play something really kind of strange, where he is simply stronger than Liem, especially with the extra minute.
And I can tell you that by Liem retreating that night, he's gone into his own preparation. So no one had ever played that move before. And Liem, this is his home-cooked idea. And he moves his king to the edge of the board, getting out of the eye line of the light-squared bishop. This is I think this is a good blitz approach.
Oh.
Magnus, however, is starting to create some threats. So black's king is much safer now, but it did cost a valuable move, a valuable tempo. And white's queen, white's knight, white's bishops, they're all perfectly placed to attack those black pawns in the middle of the board. All white needs to do, really, is to start improving his knight at the bottom. The white knight next to his king is not doing anything. That's why the bishop steps back. The white knight is going to actually jump to the square that that bishop previously occupied. So, yeah, it's very tense. Does black touch any of those pawns in the center of the board? If you touch those black pawns, you might weaken squares. So, yeah, it's really difficult for Liem. The time situation, still more than a minute advantage for Magnus. So that is already critical. That could play a huge part in the result.
Yeah, and Liem facing pressure in the center. He has to defend his pawns, so that's why he steps forward with the bishop. It's a good move, just breaking the coordination between the rook, knight and queen.
Magnus will be itching to give up his rook for this bishop. It's just, I've talked to Magnus enough times. He wants to sacrifice. He hates his opponents having nice pawn structures. He's going to be very tempted to use his rook and sacrifice it for the bishop, doubling up black's pawns in the center. But I don't think you should get carried away with anything flashy here. You just need to play quickly, keep the pace. He's still a minute ahead, although that's ticking down now. The white knights can move. You can protect one knight with the other knight, for example. You have lots of ideas here for white, but you just need to trust your instinct. He's slowed down.
He's slowed down. I reckon he's considering your move. Rook takes bishop. That's why he's paused for thought. And he's got his music on.
In Armageddon, you shouldn't get carried away. Even if it's a strong move, even if sacrificing here, getting that black bishop off the board, even if it's good, why waste 1 whole minute of an Armageddon game on that? Just play a simple move. Move one of the white knights.
And he's now only got 20-second time advantage over Liem, and he has to make a move. I think he has to commit to something. You know, for me, I would be springboarding with my knight to g5. Just put some pressure on that bishop. Gosh,
Spent a minute and a half on one move. It's Armageddon. There's no increment.
He's now down on the clock, Magnus Carlsen, and he has to win this game.
And then he plays maybe the most natural move on the board. He could have played this instantly. He defends one knight with the other one. And now the queens are coming off the board, however. So we saw an exchange. Magnus shook his head. Maybe that was just because of how slow he was playing. It looks like he's still fine on the board. You can trade off the queens if you want to. Along that diagonal, the white knight can move away. Still looks like white is stable with his minor pieces.
And Liem's pawn on d5 is being attacked, so he has to defend that, perhaps attack the bishop, the knight, sorry. The knight jumps forward, also very good. And Liem has a time advantage over Magnus.
That is going to be huge, that time advantage. It could play a huge role, the clock, because it's such a block position suddenly. It's very similar, actually, in terms of mentality to that Prague versus Duda Armageddon. It's going to come down to a position that's blocked, and it's just about who's quicker on the mouse. And, OK, we do see an exchange of pawns. Not 100% sure about that from Liem, because now it's slightly less blocked. He could have maybe just locked things down and played on the clock, but now, can you kick away white's knight from the centre? That is the key. Black's rooks need to find open lines. You need to get towards those two white pawns on the left, for example. But how do you do that? If white stabilizes, if white secures his knight in the center, then Magnus is just in control.
And now it's Liem's turn to have a think while he considers what to do, and he pushes the A pawn. So he's got the same idea as you, David. He wants to attack the B pawn, but yeah, maybe too slow.
It's very, very slow, and Magnus is now going to start jumping forward, attacking a weak pawn, that black pawn on the A5 square that Liem has just kind of put there as a target. Magnus is going to try and grab it. And suddenly it's Liem. He's playing with fewer pieces, remember. A rook is not as good as a bishop and knight. So black has 2 rooks, white has 3 pieces to play with. It's slightly easier the more pieces you have in general, despite what the pawn count is. And Magnus, he's insisting, he's stubborn, he's going after that black A pawn. And now 35-second time advantage. Yeah, maybe the clock will decide this game. On the board, it's still looking good for white, however. That moment where Magnus froze for 1.5 minutes, maybe he spent the time well, just choosing a safe variation.
Yeah, and Liem now under a minute, 49 seconds on the clock, and he's just struggling both on and off the board. Oh, tricky times. He has to speed up. I mean, regardless of what he has to do. Okay, so he gives up the A pawn. Fine. But just keep on making those moves. Keep on putting pressure on Magnus.
Now, this pawn will be captured, however. Magnus, I think, is just going to take it back with his own pawn. The one thing that white should not do is exchange a set of rooks now. If you take with white's rook, then you're only left with your minor pieces. Normally, you want one of everything. Oh, wow, he really does push his rook forward and capture. Normally, you want to keep pieces on the board, and Liem now complicates the issue by throwing his pawn forward. Now his idea is to go for checkmate. He's going for the white king. I thought he would just exchange rooks. I thought maybe he would be OK there, but Magnus finds a nice counter-attacking move. Rather than retreat the white bishop, he's forcing off a trade of rooks. He has won 2 pawns in the process, so now it's OK to swap rooks. And now that those have left the board, Liem is left with a ruined position. He's down on material, he's down on the clock. 20 seconds, it's not enough.
It's not enough, no. And look at him, he just moves his king. And white has the dream position. The bishop and knight are coordinating beautifully, and he captures a pawn. I mean, more or less, Magnus can play anything, because with 19, 18 seconds left on the clock, there's nothing Liem can do.
Yeah, he just lost the speed at the wrong moment, Liem, and a couple of blunders happened where he lost pawns due to the situation on the clock. And Magnus, he's reasserted control. Everything's defended. OK, he grabbed another pawn. It's just, it was like hungry hippos. Magnus grabbed one pawn, another pawn, another pawn, another pawn. All of black's pawns have disappeared, and Liem, rather than try and race on the clock, he has resigned. Magnus takes the win.
Wow, what a dramatic match.